Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to 19 days of COVID-19 live classes, day 6. Tawwakul, putting our trust and reliance in Allah so that we go from stress to sanity, inshallah. So, Tawwakul itself translates to trust and reliance in Allah. And there's a verse here from the Quran where it says, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and He will provide him from sources he could never imagine, and whoever puts their trust in Allah, then He will suffice him. Verily Allah will accomplish His purpose. Indeed, Allah has set a measure for all things. Chapter 65, verse 3. And there's so many different verses in the Quran that remind us that in fact Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is in charge, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this, and we don't need to worry ourselves because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is in control of everything, subhanallah. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is, rely upon the living who does not die and exalt His praise. That's probably His as in capital H, actually, in Surat al-Furqan, verse 25, verse 58. Chapter 25, verse 58. It really helps because so many times we get caught up with people helping us, or somehow having an expectation that we need people to behave or be a particular way in order for everything to be okay. But people are fallible and people die, whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all wise, all knowing, all hearing, all seeing, and He never dies. So why wouldn't we put our trust in Him rather than in people or even in our own selves? And upon Allah let the believers rely, in chapter 14, verse 11. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us that He is the one that we're meant to rely upon. So if you're getting frustrated because perhaps your government isn't doing enough, or you're getting frustrated because people aren't following the rules, they're breaking the rules. So they might be, I don't know, buying out all the things that you need from the shops, or they might be going out when they don't need to be and not doing social distancing. There might be things going on around you. And it feels like unless these people toe the line and do the right thing, it's not going to be okay. But in fact it is. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one in charge of all of this, subhanallah. And we can rely upon Him. So for those who've become stressed by the theories, all right, so there's lots of theories out there to do with 5G and to do with vaccines and all sorts of things that I've listened to recently just to keep myself informed about what's going on. And I'm neutral on all of this. I'm not getting myself worked up or anxious because I appreciate maybe there is some truth in these theories. But at the end of the day, I rely upon Allah because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the planner. And in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were the hypocrites, and at that time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered them, answered through this verse of the Quran where He says, those to whom the people said, indeed the people have gathered against you, so fear them. But it only increased their faith, and they said, sufficient for us is Allah, and He is an excellent guardian. And I really feel that we can apply this. If we are worried about what people might be doing, what people might be plotting, We don't need to fear them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already told us in the Quran how for those before us in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it increased their faith. And they said, sufficient for us is Allah. He is an excellent guardian. And I certainly see that this is happening globally. We are seeing people stepping out who normally perhaps haven't, showing up, increased in their faith, doing more for the sake of Allah. Alhamdulillah. And for those worried about the financial impact or the food shortage, this hadith, inshallah, of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam can bring relief. If you were to rely upon Allah with reliance due to Him, He would provide for you just as He provides for the birds. They go out in the morning with empty stomachs and return full. Alhamdulillah. So again, we don't need to worry. Our rizq is written for us. Our provision is written for us. Even before this situation occurred, it was already written what will be provided for us. And inshallah, everything will be provided as and when you need it, and not necessarily before. We don't need to stock up in order to feel okay. You don't need to make sure that you've covered everything for a rainy day and then be worrying whether you forgot something, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider. He will provide when you need it, inshallah. So what gets in the way of tawakkul? Why is it that we're not feeling that sense of security and calm and feeling nervous or anxious or stressed, upset, angry, frustrated, lots of different feelings that are going on? What's going on there? It's just thought in the moment. It means that our thoughts are not with Allah, our thoughts are somewhere else. So for instance, let's remember the tea bag example from a couple of days ago. In the tea bag example, I used a tea bag. And I said if we keep the tea bag in, it was like ruminating over fearful thinking. And as the tea bag sat in there longer, the water got darker and the light that I had at the bottom of the cup got dimmer, right? So it's the same kind of thing. Fearful thoughts, we forget that Allah is our protector. So the fearful thoughts ruminate and take over, and we disconnect from the remembrance of the fact that Allah is our protector. Stressful thoughts take over, and we really buy into those stressful thoughts, and we forget that Allah is the provider. And anxious thoughts set in, and we forget that Allah knows everything, and it is all according to His plan, and that He will never burden us with more than we can bear. We forget. Honestly, when our thinking has gone astray like that, it's simply a case of those thoughts are clouding our tawakkul. They're getting in the way of that connection that we have with Allah and that remembrance of Allah. Just like the example of the light in the cup with the tea bag that I did. We forget Allah in those moments because our mind is so busy and full and chaotic with all these other thoughts. But guess what? It's just thought and it's nothing else. The situation is not creating our feelings. The situation is not creating our fear, our stress or anxiety or any of the other feelings that we're having. It's our thoughts about things that are creating it, which is why we say in the remembrance of Allah, the hearts find rest. Because when we remember Allah, then we feel at peace. That is our experience then when we are looking at everything through the lens of remembering Allah. So it's all just thought. You're always living in the feelings of your thinking in the moment. And that's why the situation with the virus, yes, it's changing rapidly. And I did yesterday look up the statistics to see what was going on. I haven't done it for many days, but I did yesterday just to see. And yes, subhanAllah, we now have over 1 million people globally that are affected. SubhanAllah. But it's just thought in the moment whether I stress or worry about that. Because as far as my situation and my children and the people around me right now in this moment, we're safe. I can have worried and stressful thinking about it. All it's going to do is interrupt my day and take away from my productiveness. Whereas if I remember Allah and know that whatever is happening and whoever's going to get affected is already written, and whoever is going to be cured from it is already written, and put my trust and reliance upon Allah, then I don't find myself worrying and stressed and overwhelmed. And so I go from that stressed state, if I was in a stressed state, into a state of sanity. And when I say sanity, what I mean by that is I am aware that the only thing creating my feelings is my thought in the moment and nothing else. That nothing needs to change outside of me for me to be okay. And it's such relief. It's such a beautiful way of experiencing even the most challenging moments. SubhanAllah. So if you found this helpful, insightful, if you felt a sense of relief from listening to this, if this reminder has benefited you in any way at all, then share the khair. Invite others to participate. We still have 13 days to go of our 19 days of live videos. All you have to do is give them the link 19dayscov19.com, and I'll do the rest of the work of showing them how they can participate. 19dayscov19.com. Invite everyone, inshallah, to benefit. Jazakallah khair for being here. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.